Welcome to episode 12, where we will talk about the other trumpets.
Yes.
So last week we talked about trumpets 1 through 3, and this week we're going to talk about trumpets 4 and 5. But it seems as though we have less evidence that we know for sure exactly
Yeah.
what perhaps trumpet 5 is. But just to recap quickly, trumpets 1 through 3 you can learn all about in episode 11.
And you will enjoy it, no doubt, no doubt.
Right. So let's go to Revelation chapter 8 and pick up here in verse number 12.
Yes.
And the fourth angel sounded, and the third part of the sun was smitten, and the third part of the moon, and the third part of the stars, so as the third part of them was darkened, and the day shone not for a third part of it, and the night likewise. And I beheld and heard an angel flying through the midst of heaven, saying with a loud voice, Woe, 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 to the inhabitants of the earth, by reason of the other voices of the trumpets of the three angels which are yet to sound. Now, what's interesting to about this is you've got the blowing of the fourth trumpet.
Yes.
You've got a third part of the sun, the moon, the stars darkened, so that there's a third part less day and a third part less night.
Now, that is an important point for us to ponder, because we are, as inhabitants of this particular part of the country, we expect that in the wintertime we have less daytime.
Right, and more nighttime.
And more nighttime. And in the summertime we have more daytime and less nighttime. But this is different than that, because it says that essentially that everything becomes shorter.
Right.
That the day is a third shorter.
Yeah.
And that the night becomes a third shorter.
Right.
And so for that reason, I guess we would have to just call this the shortening of days.
Didn't Jesus refer to this in Matthew 24?
Except there be a shortening of days. Let's take a look at that real quick. I hadn't really thought to mark that place, but you know, it can't be that hard to find.
It can't be that hard to find, Matthew 24.
Okay, Matthew 24. And let's just see.
Verse 22.
Okay.
And except those days should be shortened.
That's not verse 22.
It's in my Bible.
Oh, maybe I'm on the wrong page. No wonder I couldn't find it.
Well,
hey, I even have it highlighted.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And except those days should be shortened, there should no flesh be saved, but for the elect's sake, those days shall be shortened.
Now, let's back up a verse to put it in perspective.
Right.
Because the verse before that, verse 21 of the 24th chapter of Matthew says, For then shall be great tribulation, such as was not since the beginning of the world to this time, no, nor ever shall be. And except those days should be shortened, there should no flesh be saved, but for the elect's sake those days shall be shortened. So there seems to be, in the words of Jesus, that there is a direct connection between the shortening of days and the tribulation. Now, let's see. Let's look at our chart.
Let's look.
Because, as you can tell, let's just see here. All right, so we're looking at trumpet, or no, let's see, trumpet number 3 we talked about last time.
Yep.
And so we know that all of this is happening in the 1900s. And so now I keep looking for at that 4 up there.
You do.
So this one is going to be 4, and it is the shortening of days, and we have a direct connection between the shortening of days and the tribulation period.
Okay.
The tribulation period would be the last 3.5 years of what we call the 70th week of Daniel. The wrath of God happens right after that. There's the wrath of God.
So we know that just past the rapture is the wrath of God.
Yes.
And so that 70th week, or that 7-year period. This
shortening of days is going to indicate that it's going to be in that tribulation period. And so we know that tribulation is going on right here, beginning with the 4th trumpet.
Okay.
Okay?
All right.
Now, that means that the 3.5 years has begun.
Yeah.
All right. Now, the first half of that week would have taken place before that, but it doesn't mean that this 3rd trumpet has anything to do with that. There should be a little more space in there, is what I'm saying.
Are you saying the board is too small?
Yes, board is too small. But anyway, we've got, and so obviously we're going to have the 4th and the 5th and
the 6th.
The 6th. All right in there together, all taking place. And so.
Look, this, so this 4th trumpet.
Yes.
This shortening of days.
Yes.
There is, in the book of Revelation that we just read.
Yes.
It sounds like there are some, we could call them celestial occurrences that take place.
Yes.
Okay? This 3rd part of the stars being darkened, 3rd part of the moon being darkened. The thing is that shortening of days, I have felt my entire life. And for a long time, people would say, oh, you think it's going by fast now, wait till you get older. And sure enough, the older I get, the faster it gets.
Yeah.
But this is what I've noticed.
Yes.
I've noticed with our kids, with our godchildren, that I can compare my childhood to theirs, or even like to Declan's. Declan's 6 years old.
Yeah.
They do not have the time that I had when I was 6 years old.
Right.
And there's no physical explanation. Like, I know that scientists say that the atomic clock, not the atomic clock, but the the atomic clock.
And another subject.
But that the celestial clock,
Yes.
you know, that it's that the Earth's rotation is spinning just a hair too fast. Like it's wound a little too.
Article came out 2 weeks ago about that very thing, and that they were saying that the rotation of the Earth has increased in speed faster than it ever has before.
But even that is like 1/10 of a second.
Exactly.
So like something like that, you're like, well, of course, scientists would notice if a 3rd part of the sun was darkened and a 3rd part of the moon.
But would they?
But would they? That is the thing, Dad.
Yeah.
Would they?
The day may be short, and when it says that that a 3rd part of the sun is darkened, what that means to me is that it only shines 2/3 as long as it used to.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
So
and it's the same for the moon and stars.
Exactly.
Perhaps.
Exactly. And so it says it's doing the same thing for the day as the night. So.
But at the same time, if we're looking at this as a timeline, then we can't really say, perhaps, that it's such a protracted period as, my whole life things have been winding faster. it kind of seems like, yes, although that's true, there is something else that happens, or there's something different
Yeah, yeah.
in order to make it really that significant.
Okay, and let me point out a couple of
Yeah.
things, because many of our church folks that are watching,
Okay,
this is the month of January,
okay.
just barely. In fact, by the time someone sees this, it will
It'll
no
be
longer
February.
be January.
That's
Yes,
right.
but it is still January today, and January is a month of fasting, prayer and fasting for the church at Asheville. Now, I don't know how you feel about that, but the way I feel about it is fasting has the ability to make the day seems like it lasts forever, as does the month. It just, and on top of that, there is this thing called COVID, and people are sequestered in their homes more than they have ever been.
Right.
And so there's a lot of them are not able to go to work, they're not able to do this, that, the other. And those two events basically are seeming to make the day longer.
Okay, see, that's the opposite of what we're talking about.
I know. So what I'm saying is those are exceptions to the rule. In normal times,
Right.
when there's not a fast going on, when there's not a pandemic in effect, that every one of us would be saying in our daily lives, I just don't have the time I used to have.
Right.
You see, and so I'm just saying, you may be temporarily distorted in how you feel about this, but there's a reason. There's COVID, there's fasting.
Right.
But because of those things, you may not be noticing it, but we can talk about our grandmothers and how they used to have to wash things out. They had to wash laundry in a wash tub. I remember as a kid getting my finger stuck in the roller
Oh my gosh.
on Grandma's old roller washing machine, and it had a motor, but all the motor did was just to agitate the tub, and she would wash the clothes and agitate them, and then you have to run them through the roller and by hand, and let them come back, go out the other side, and then she'd change the water and then rinse them all and all this. And anyway, it took forever to wash clothes. It took forever when you're cooking over a wood stove, when you're mowing the grass with a push mower. It took forever, but you had enough time to do it.
And look, and that, all of those things that you've just discussed were a far cry from the having to go gather the wood for the wood fire. Not the wood stove, but the wood fire.
Yes.
And the chopping the grass with a machete.
Yes.
And
yes.
all of that stuff. I mean, your grandmother, she was doing it by hand, but I mean, she had a crank wringer.
Yeah, yeah.
She had an agitator that she just operated by hand.
Well, she didn't have to take the clothes down to the river and beat them on a rock.
Right.
You see, so we've had these improvements, but the thing is, in this day and time, we've got all these modern conveniences. You can put your clothes in the washer. In fact, they've now got a machine that washes and dries.
Are you serious?
Yes, you put them in there, and then you just come back later, and they're dried. They're
Are you
through.
serious?
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
Just one machine.
One
it does
machine.
both.
Yeah,
That's pretty cool.
Why not?
Well, right, exactly. Like, why not? Why did it take this long?
Yeah,
What's wrong with these
exactly.
people?
So, but
all this hauling of clothes from one machine to another.
and you've got a microwave oven that that thaws out everything and it cooks things and all of this stuff.
And
yet we still don't have time.
Yes.
And what's happening to our time? I don't know. I don't know what's happening to it.
And I was just having a discussion with you and Mom, I think it was yesterday, when I said, I can't believe that we're already at February. On the one hand, it seems like the last 12 months has been an eternity, and at the same time like a blink. And I said to y'all, it feels like that movie Total Recall.
Yeah.
Where instead of going on vacation, people will sit down and have an experience, and it only takes a few hours And yet, when they wake up, even though it feels like only a few hours have passed, but at the same time,
Yeah.
they've lived an entire lifetime. That's what the last year feels like. It feels like I've lived a decade.
Yeah, yeah.
And so we're looking at these days, and it's like they're shortened, and it feels like you can't keep up, but there's so much packed into them that you can't,
Yeah.
it's like you don't have a moment's peace.
Exactly, exactly. Now, the question is, all of those things are our perceptions.
Correct, yeah,
The events of the fourth trumpet,
right,
have they or are they happening yet? That is the
Right.
question. And I don't have an answer
right,
because I think that when they do happen, and of course, in Jesus back in Matthew 24, he says, and except those days should be shortened, there should no flesh be saved.
right,
But for the elect's sake, they shall be shortened. In other words, if I don't let you hurry through that, you'll never make it.
yeah,
And you, this thing of someone being tortured,
oh,
you know,
God.
physical torture is
Yeah.
a terrible thing to
Yes.
be aware of, and it's certainly a terrible thing for someone to have to go through. I always think if I'm seeing some kind of a television show where someone's being tortured, that the best thing that could happen to them is if they would pass out so that they would not be aware of it and then wake up later, you know, and it was all over with. It's like when I had to have a couple of teeth taken out by an oral surgeon years ago, and I said to him when I was in my initial office visit, I said, "Can you put me to sleep to do this?" He said, "Well, Mr. Douglas," he says, "it's just a couple of teeth." He said, "We're just going to pull your teeth out, but we're going to have to scrape the jawbone.
Oh, God.
And we're going to have to do this, that, and the other." And I'm like getting woozy just hearing all of this. And I said, "My question is, can
it
you
be
put
done?
me to sleep?"
Right, can it be
And
done?
he said, "Yes, but it'll cost extra." I said, "Can I afford it?"
He said, how much you got?
Yeah. And he put me to sleep, and I liked it a lot better.
Yeah, no kidding.
I liked it a lot better.
What he didn't know is, had he not put you to sleep, you were going to pass out anyway.
Well, I know it, and I wouldn't have to pay for that, see. That's
But
the
I'd
thing.
rather be out before.
Yeah, exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. So anyway,
Yeah, this shortening of days, this is very, very interesting. But it does feel like if that's going to be part of that Daniel's 70th week, that maybe it is a more
it's going to be much more pronounced. I
right, a
guess.
more pronounced and
Yeah.
more compact event.
Yeah, I still don't know if we're going to even be aware of it because of the fact that if he speeds time up, he'll probably speed up the clock too.
There is that.
You know?
Now, here's something for you.
Yeah.
And I know that this isn't the case in every state, certainly not in every country. But here, we are in a curfew from 10 p.m. to 5 a.m., which is roughly a third part of the day and night.
Well,
No?
and
Is that not it?
amazingly, there was a time in my life when that 10 p.m. curfew would have really aggravated me.
Yeah,
As it is now, it hasn't changed my life at all.
not a bit. Not a bit. I sleep right through it still.
Yeah, I do too. I do the same thing. So I don't know. But I would say that because of the correlation that we find in Matthew 24 with the tribulation period, and that we know that scripturally we're not going to see the Great Tribulation start until the abomination of desolation takes place, and that that's not going to take place until the temple is rebuilt, I would have to say we're not there yet.
Okay.
So on the basis of that, I would say that the fourth trumpet has not sounded.
Okay.
Okay? And that's all I've got to say about that.
But when you look at the events of the first, second, and third trumpet, they happen in such a concise amount of time
Yeah,
that we know pretty much for a fact that the fourth trumpet could sound at any time.
at any time, yeah.
And that it doesn't necessarily mean that it will be, in fact, almost by definition, because it's the shortening of days, we almost know for a fact it's not going to last several years.
No, maybe 3.5.
But think about it, you know.
I know.
When you look at World War I, World War II, Chernobyl, those events took place over years, months, you know?
Yeah, exactly. So,
wow.
anyway, there it is. So I would have to say we're not there yet, but we could be very, very close. Because don't get it in your mind that it's going to take forever to build the third temple. It can be built in months, yes, absolutely.
Right. So you're saying that there's a correlation there because of that Daniel 70th week and where the temple is rebuilt.
Yeah.
That is really going to be close to this whole shortening of days and the temple being rebuilt are going to
Yes, yes. I would say it's going to take place just about at the conjunction of the abomination of desolation. That would be my guess. So,
but now, that would be in the middle of the week, wouldn't it?
yes. Yes. But the Great Tribulation doesn't really start until
Right, but now
that takes place.
the sacrifices, you feel like there will be sacrifices offered in the temple before the abomination that maketh desolate stands up and says you don't have to do that anymore.
Yeah, oh yeah. But it might not be but 6 months of it.
Okay. So sometime during that first 3.5 year period,
Yes.
the temple will be rebuilt,
Yes.
the days will be shortened, and possibly, or maybe even likely, the fifth trumpet will sound. So let's go back.
But not before the fourth one.
Right. That's why I said the days will be shortened,
Yeah, so it
and
looks
then the
like,
fifth trumpet will
it
sound.
looks like, yes, it looks like that the fifth trumpet will take place during the tribulation period.
Right. Since the sixth trumpet war
Yes.
is going to be right there at the end, right?
Appears
Of
to
Daniel's
be.
70th week.
Yes.
On which side of the abomination that maketh desolate standing up is the fifth trumpet going to sound?
Well,
We don't know.
we don't know. But when we talk about the specifics of this fifth trumpet, we're going to realize how much we don't know.
Well, I think we should get into it.
All right,
because
let's do it.
Let's
do
just
it.
wade out a little deeper.
Well, let's move into the 9th chapter of the book of Revelation. And we're not going to read this whole thing right now. We're going to read a few verses. And the fifth angel sounded, and I saw a star fall from heaven unto the earth, and to him was given the key of the bottomless pit. Now, I don't get the impression that the key is given to the star. I think the key is given to the fifth angel.
Well, you know, earlier in the scripture, in the Old Testament,
Yeah.
there is a reference to a star as being an angel. Now, in the Old Testament, it
Yeah.
refers to Lucifer. I saw you fall
Yes.
from heaven as a star.
Of a star. Yes.
Okay, and so it's entirely possible that this is an angel.
Yeah.
You know, it makes sense, right?
Could be. Could be.
But that also kind of makes you think about some of the previous chapter and it talking about there fell a great star from heaven or this, that, and the other happening. And it makes you wonder, has there been things, heavenly things, that have precipitated earthly events?
Oh, and I'm sure that there have been. In fact,
Right.
yes.
I mean, who messed with the reactor.
Well,
I
there's
mean,
that. Yes.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Yeah.
but moving
Yes.
on to...
What angel or devil got
Right.
into the minds of the Archduke
Right,
and the Kaiser
right,
and Hitler
right.
And-
There were certain spirits at work.
at work? Mussolini,
Right,
yes. And Toko Yomo.
no. Pretty sure that was John Lennon's wife. But we might be talking about Mao Zedong.
Well, no, I was actually talking about the head of Japan, who was the
Oh, okay.
leader that took us into.
You're like, oh no, not that one. I
yes,
really mean
yeah,
Yoko Ono.
his name was Tojo, Toto, or I don't remember what his name was, but anyway.
Well,
That's another story, but that's
it
not,
is.
yeah.
It's another story. But Revelation chapter 9 here, so there's a fifth angel sounds, I saw a star fall from heaven to the earth, and to him was given the key to the bottomless pit. Now, on some level, you immediately jump to, this is not a physical, literal thing, but I guess we don't really know that.
And let me ask you this. Would John call something a bottomless pit simply on the basis of the fact that he couldn't see the bottom?
Possibly?
We don't know.
We don't know.
If God gave him some intuition like this is the bottomless pit.
Right.
Now, interesting about that is that it just says the bottomless pit. It's talking about a single location. Okay, so this may or may not be a worldwide event. Sounds more like it's a localized event. However, let's read the details of this particular event. And verse 2 says, "And he opened the bottomless pit, and there arose a smoke out of the pit as the smoke of a great furnace, and the sun and the air were darkened by reason of the smoke of the pit."
And I gotta tell you, of all the trumpets that have sounded, this one gives me the most heebie-jeebies.
Yeah. Yes. So,
And I was looking at a reference here next to bottomless pit.
yeah,
My Thompson Chain reference refers back to Luke 8 and 31. And Luke 8 is talking about when Jesus goes to Gadara. And there's a crazy man running among the tombs
okay.
named Legion, for
Yes.
we are many.
Uh-huh.
And it refers to the verse in which Jesus asked him, saying, "What is thy name?" And he said, "Legion," because many devils were entered into him, and they besought him that he would not command them to go out into the deep.
Into the deep.
And so I would be interested to see what kind of word studies connect the bottomless pit and the deep that these satanic forces are talking about. Because if there is a correlation, then it's a cultural correlation that John very well knew about.
Right.
And what he was referring to is the unlocking of satanic forces, Dad.
Yes.
This
Yes.
is like horrifying.
Yes. And there is another reference in the,
17th chapter.
is it 17th?
I think it's 17 and 8, where it says, the beast that thou sawest was and is not, and shall ascend out of the bottomless pit
Yes.
and go into perdition.
Yes. Interesting. Well, we don't really know if this bottomless pit is an actual opening in the earth.
Right.
We don't know much about it, except that there was a smoke rising out of the pit as the smoke of a great furnace, and the sun and the air were darkened by reason of the smoke of the pit.
Okay.
Now, some more things happened. And there came out of the smoke locusts upon the earth, and unto them was given power, as the scorpions of the earth have power. Now, a couple of things here. We're going to see as we go into a greater description of these locusts that they're apparently not bugs 2
Right.
inches long.
Right.
They're apparently going to be monstrous-sized locusts.
And when you think of a locust,
Yeah,
I link locusts with famine.
yeah.
Because every time you hear about locusts, it's a swarm,
Somebody has a family.
and
Yes.
and they've taken
Yeah.
out crops, and we've
Yeah.
seen that in the last year.
Yeah.
In 2020, there was a crazy amount of
Oh.
these locusts that were coming through and
The
just
Middle East,
decimating
yeah.
the Middle
Oh,
East.
yeah. Egypt and,
Right.
some of the Arab countries there.
So you could see that whatever it is that these locusts are, that they are, that they destroy, they're destroyers,
Yes,
that they take provision,
yes,
and that they are harmful, physically harmful. No one is afraid of a scorpion because of its looks. It's because of its sting.
right. Okay, but to notice that it says, and that talking about the locusts, it says, and unto them was given power, as the scorpions of the earth have power. Now, what is the power of the scorpion? It is fear. Because if you have ever been in the presence of a scorpion, and as a child I had an experience with a scorpion,
Oh, God.
that was one of the most terrifying things that I have ever had anything to do with. But my grandmother's house apparently had a nest of scorpions under it. And it's the only place that I've ever encountered scorpions. And 2 times as a child, I encountered a scorpion in that house. One time I was in the bathtub.
Oh my Lord.
And
Oh my God.
and a scorpion fell into the
No,
tub.
my Lord.
Yes, it was a horrible thing, and it scared me so bad that for weeks after that, I dreaded having to get in the bathtub. And we didn't have a shower, it was just a tub. You had to sit down in the tub, and it was a horrible thing. And the other time was just when a scorpion was running across the living room floor. But there is something about a scorpion with his stinger up and his
Right.
tail up over his
Oh,
back,
yeah.
and he's running at you, and you know that he can be deadly, that he can pop you with that stinger. And I believe that that's the power of the scorpion, is that
Paralyzing fear.
well, you very seldom hear of anybody being bit by a scorpion. But anytime there's one around, people are scared of it. Okay? I mean, with shoes on, it wouldn't be hard to step on a scorpion.
Right.
But I'm not going to do it. I'm going to run.
But I'm not going to do it. Oh
So
my
I
God.
believe that possibly the power of the scorpion is fear.
Okay.
That oftentimes will immobilize you. Okay. So that's just speculation. That is Douglas 1-1. I mean, that is, I can't tell you any more about that. Now, but now keep in mind, this is not talking about scorpions.
Right. It's talking about
It's talking about locusts.
that have the power of scorpions. So
Okay.
if you look at it like that locusts, which destroy provision,
Yes,
okay, which destroy livelihood,
yes.
having the power of fear.
Huh. My goodness.
I mean, like on some level, it almost kind of sounds like things that could affect one's personal economy, or perhaps the economy of the world.
Well, there's that.
Anyway, we'll
So
see.
let's look a little more. Read, starting there in verse number 4.
Okay, and it was commanded them that they should not hurt the grass of the earth, neither any green thing, neither any tree. Now that sounds like it is a physical thing.
Yes, it does.
But only those men which have not the seal of God in their foreheads. What are we talking about?
Let's hold up right there, because that brings back a thought. And if we turn back a page, okay, we have a parenthetical event that takes place in the timeline of the seals.
Yes.
And it seems as though the sixth seal is about to take place.
But now the sixth seal is the wrath of God.
Is the wrath of God. So it's right there at the end of tribulation.
Okay.
Okay.
But before the wrath of God.
But before the wrath of God. But notice this parenthetical story in chapter 7, verse 1. After these things I saw four angels standing on the four corners of the earth, holding the four winds of the earth, that the wind should not blow on the earth, nor on the sea, nor on or any tree. And I saw another angel ascending from the east, having the seal of the living God, and he cried with a loud voice to the four angels to whom it was given to hurt the earth and the sea, saying, Hurt not the earth, neither the sea, nor the trees, till we have sealed the servants of our God in their forehead.
That's exactly...
And that's the very thing that this says.
Right. This is saying, don't hurt the grass or the trees. This is saying, hurt not the earth or the sea or the trees. But there it is.
Until we have sealed the servants of God.
Until we've sealed them.
Yeah, and this
says
you don't get to hurt anything except those that don't have the seal.
Right.
So it sounds to me like that it's looking at the same event from 2 points of perspective.
Right.
Okay. Well, just hold that in your bonnet there. And,
I'm gonna hold it in my bonnet.
And then we.
Oh no! Where's my bonnet?
Yeah. Well, anyway.
All right.
And then verse number 5. And to them it was given that they should not kill them, but that they should be tormented 5 months.
That's
Tormented
crazy.
5 months, yes. Okay. And their torment was as the torment of a scorpion when he striketh a man.
This is very disturbing.
And in those days shall men seek death, and shall not find it, and shall desire to die, and death shall flee from them. And now it goes and gives us a greater description of the locusts. So read that right there, beginning verse 7.
Man. And the shapes of the locusts were like unto horses prepared unto battle. So
that doesn't sound like they're 2 inches long.
It does not. And it sounds like they're horses that are like armored, which is weird because he would have lived in a time when they didn't armor horses for battle in the way that we think of it.
Okay, but he is right. But now if you...
But he would be thinking of the Roman type of armoring a horse for battle.
Yes, which basically involved
leather, right?
Leather, and well, they would use metal shields on that leather sometimes to protect the front of a horse.
Yeah.
And also down his flanks. And sometimes he would even have a thing over his face.
But I didn't think they did that until medieval knights, you know, as far as metal, because it seems like the Romans didn't even have a lot of metal in their own armor. The officers, everyone else had boiled leather, you know, it was hardened leather.
Right, yeah, but why was that?
They weren't very bright.
Okay.
It was expensive,
hey,
I'm sure it's
right. But if there was one.
Right. If there was one, then he would know that's what an armored horse looks like.
Exactly, okay.
All right, so the shapes of the locusts were like unto horses prepared unto battle, and on their heads were as it were crowns like gold, and their faces were as the faces of men, and they had hair as the hair of women, and their teeth were as the teeth of lions, and they had breastplates as it were the breastplates of iron. Okay, so there's your metal. And the sound of their wings was as the sound of chariots of many horses running to battle.
Okay, now hold up right there. Just hold up right there. Well, no, read the next,
Oh my
next
gosh.
line.
All right. And they had tails like unto scorpions, and there were stings in their tails, and their power was to hurt men 5 months.
I don't know what he's hung up on this 5-month thing, okay? Like he was hung up on that 1/3 for a while there. You know, everything was going to be a third.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's just the scripture.
This is disturbing.
Well, let me tell you what's really disturbing is that it did not say that they were horses.
Right. It said they were locusts that looked like horses.
That were like unto horses.
They were like unto horses.
Now, it doesn't say specifically what it was about a horse that reminded him of this creature. Okay?
I will tell you what the poet said.
Okay.
A horse is a horse, of course, of course.
Yes, of course. But these were not horses, but they were like unto horses.
Right.
Okay? And they were like unto horses prepared unto battle.
Right.
They had heads, and on their heads were, as it were, crowns like gold.
So it was like a crown.
And their faces were as the faces of men. Now let me just throw something out here. I'm trying to imagine what John is seeing.
It's pretty
And these
gruesome.
things are coming out of the smoke.
These are coming out of the smoke of
Coming
the
out
bottomless
of the
pit.
smoke that's coming from the bottomless pit.
Yes.
Okay? But what
They
he's
sound
seeing...
like many chariots of
yes,
many horses.
their sound, yes,
Thrum, thrum,
and
thrum,
the
thrum,
sound
thrum,
of
thrum.
their wings was as the sound of chariots of many horses running to battle. Now, could this have been a military helicopter that looked like a locust or grasshopper,
Right.
that had a window in the front, and there is actually a man in that helicopter flying the thing, and he has on a gold helmet, and he has a face of a man. And John is seeing this thing, and he's trying to describe it, and he's saying, well, it's like a locust, but it looks kind of like a horse, but it's got this metal breastplate, and it's got now.
It sounds like many chariots running to battle.
Yes, can you imagine the sound of a military helicopter?
Like those big ones.
It would
those
sound,
big,
yeah,
double-ended.
Yeah.
I mean, those
And
things.
it has a stinger in its tail, which some of those military helicopters literally have a gunship back
Right.
there. I mean,
Right, they're gunships, so they've
they're
got
gunships. They have a gunner back there that's with it's stinging.
Yeah.
He's shooting. So I don't know. I'm just saying that sounds to me like that could very well be John's interpretation of what he saw. I'm just throwing that out there.
By the way,
Yes.
I did look up the word study on bottomless pit.
Yeah.
And it means the abyss, unfathomable depth, and especially Jewish conception. Okay?
Okay.
The home of the dead and of evil spirits.
So the dead live where evil spirits are.
It's like that's a cultural thing, and I had wondered if it was a cultural thing because of Jesus using the terminology before. Just like he used the terminology lake of fire.
Yeah.
That was something that was not uncommon to the people he was talking to. They were
Yeah.
like, yeah, the lake of fire, of course.
Yeah.
But we always refer to Revelation, which hadn't been written yet. When we think about the lake of fire, we think Revelation.
It hadn't been written yet?
Not when Jesus was walking around.
Okay. You threw me there for a minute. Okay.
What is in that cocoa?
Nothing. Nothing.
So anyways, the reason that I mentioned that is because it does sound like that opening of the bottomless pit was loosing some spirits into the world. And Dad, when you look at the end of that fourth trumpet, the verse afterwards shows an angel flying through the midst of heaven, because that would be right in the center, like right there. The fourth trumpet would be the middle of the trumpets.
Yeah.
That an angel flies through the midst of heaven and says, "Oh, it's gonna get bad from here.
Yeah.
Oh, you won't be to be around for this set."
Right.
He says, "Woe, woe, woe to the inhabitants of the earth by reason of the other voices of the trumpets of the three angels which are yet to sound."
Yes.
And then you have the fifth angel sounding and unlocking the place where evil spirits are.
Yeah.
And there's a cloud that arises up, and these locusts come flying out, and these are the descriptors of them.
Right. And I personally do not believe that the fifth trumpet has sounded.
I don't either. I feel like we would have a real good...
I don't think the fourth trumpet has sounded. So I think that we are somewhere between the third and the fourth trumpet.
Right.
Okay. So that's kind of where on the timeline where I would put us right now.
All right. Well, we'll finish out this description.
Is there more?
Yes, there actually is. "And they had a king over them, which is the angel of the bottomless pit, whose name in the Hebrew tongue is Abaddon, but in the Greek tongue hath his name Apollyon. One woe is past, and behold, there come two woes more hereafter."
Now let me throw in here, just for the sake of full disclosure, I have read that there are those that study eschatology that put a strong significance to that particular verse of Scripture when it says that they have a king over them who is the angel of the bottomless pit, whose name in the Hebrew tongue is Abaddon, but in the Greek tongue hath his name Apollyon. The literal interpretation of Apollyon in Greek means a destroyer. A destroyer. Now, that's a common enough term, but there are those that study history and will recognize that that is also the term that was given to Saddam Hussein. Many of you will remember Saddam, and he's of course dead now. But, and of course, if you will recall, Saddam Hussein invaded Kuwait to steal their oil. And things did not go his way because the United States decided to defend Kuwait. And so what he did was he set fire to about 50 different oil wells, if I remember right.
Wow.
And it was smoking, and it was smoking, and it was smoking, and the smoke ascended up forever and ever, at least for several weeks.
Right.
Until they had to get in special firefighters in there to put the fires out. But the smoke was so heavy that they were having trouble patrolling the place with helicopters.
Wow.
Okay, so I have heard at least one eschatology teacher that was saying that this was the fifth seal. Now, the problem that I have with it is that I don't think the fourth seal has taken place yet.
Right.
And there is a connection between that fourth, not fourth seal, fourth trumpet.
Fourth trumpet, right.
There is a connection between that fourth trumpet and the tribulation period.
Right.
And so I don't think we're quite
like
there yet. So I don't think these things have taken place.
And also, there seems to be a lot more power. Of all the trumpets, this one has got, this is the beginning of the three woes.
Yes.
There is a different tone. None of the trumpets are good things. Let me just be clear.
No.
None of them are good things. But after that fourth trumpet sounds, and that angel comes flying and says, "Woe, woe, woe."
Yes.
Then this trumpet is, this angel says at the end of this, one woe is past, and behold, two more woes come hereafter.
Yes.
You understand that none of them are good, but these last three trumpets are the worst.
Are bad, yes.
They are the worst. And you get this sense, I can't get away from this idea that there is a huge spiritual connection to the darkness that is introduced in this fifth trumpet.
Yeah.
And you see that when, especially in this 11th verse, when it says that they had a king over them, which is the angel of the bottomless pit.
Yes.
Now, in the Tops and Chain reference, it attributes that to Satan.
Yeah.
And then where it goes on to say, whose name in the Hebrew tongue is Abaddon, but in the Greek tongue hath his name Apollyon, it says, titles of Satan.
Yeah.
Now, we know that Jesus did refer to Satan as the one who has come to steal, to kill, and to destroy.
Yeah.
So we know that destroyer is
Right.
one of his identities.
Exactly.
But there certainly seems like a lot more power is given to this individual
Yeah.
than just a dictator in a third world country.
Exactly. I don't think that Saddam Hussein was smart enough to be this guy.
Wow. That's
And
really
I'm not
mean.
knocking him,
That's
and
really
I'm not
mean.
meaning to to talk unkindly of the dead,
And you just did
but I
both.
did. I dissed him bad.
You did.
Yeah.
All right. Well, this has been heavy.
It has.
This
It
has been
has,
heavy.
Yes.
So, if we could look at our chart before we close out,
Well, all right.
we have filled in all 7 trumpets.
Yes, we have.
We believe 4, 5, and 6 are going to happen during that Daniel's 70th week or the tribulation period. With the
Yes.
7th trumpet, the beginning of the 7th trumpet being the rapture, of the church, and then the sounding of the 7th trumpet is being part of the wrath
The wrath
of God.
And it is also the third woe.
And it is also the third woe.
So let it, just feel good to know that as a saint of God, as a child of God, you only have to go through 2 woes.
Man, but they sound rough.
They do.
I would tell you this.
Yeah.
The longer I live,
Yeah.
and the more that I see, the less I want to be without the Holy Ghost.
Oh, for sure. Absolutely.
I mean, I just don't,
Yes.
I can't make it without Jesus.
Well-
for sure.
Nobody can. They just don't know it yet. It's
Well-
time to get your relationship with God fixed if you have
Right.
a problem with it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for joining us. I hope that you were able to draw from this. I know that it's sometimes harder when someone doesn't have all the answers, but when someone doesn't have all the answers, but they can point you to, hey, you got to get ready, you got to be aware, pay attention, then hopefully it will help you in your walk with God and in continuing forward, because things are definitely happening quickly.
Yes.
Thank you, Jesus.
Good night.
Good night.